Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here at my next Airspeed's Avatar Rewatch video. This one is going to be for the second last episode of Avatar. That is 320, Sozin's Comet Part 3, Into the Inferno, animated by JM Animation. And yeah, the fights begin in this one, and it's a really good action episode. It's absolutely like one of, if not like the best, just pure action episodes in that. That's basically all there is to this one. We see all of the big fights, a lot to just a little bit of some fights, and it's all amazing because we get to see obviously the firebenders at like complete max power, but to obviously counter that you have the other benders going full force as well, and it leads to just a lot of fantastic animation action sequences throughout the entire episode. So yeah, let's I suppose just get into it. It's primarily, I suppose the review is primarily going to be analysis of fights. I suppose the airship crew is an interesting one. They arrive at the airfield just as everything's taking off. Toph gets them on board by launching them via earthbending, and what you see in this side is just the desperation of this crew, that they know to a degree that they don't quite have the firepower to take down this many airships kind of on their own. And they're going to have to do some really kind of desperate things to make sure that they finish this. So they commandeer one airship by, Toph obviously taking control of the bridge, and then clever tactics by Sokka to get rid of the rest of the crew. And then it's basically they have to, the only option that they really have, seeing that Aang has now, confronted Ozai, is that they have to ram the ship through the other ones. And I suppose that just speaks to how desperate it has to be, that they have to risk their own lives in this kind of suicide run of the ship through the tops of the other ships. And they don't know how the ship's going to break up. They don't know how much damage they're going to do, how many ships they're going to take out. But it seems like the only option to do any sort of damage to this fleet, to protect as much of the Earth Kingdom as possible. So it's really cool how they do it, and it's obviously showing the combination of 2D and 3D animation in the show, because the airships are 3D models for the most part. And it's definitely the best execution of that in Avatar, just to see it work. And yeah, they managed to get through a good amount of the ships as they kind of climb up their own one to get to the top to limit the damage to themselves. But you see throughout the whole time it's Sokka kind of protecting Toph, because obviously Suki is fine and acrobatic, she can handle stuff on her own. And as skilled as Toph is, her, I suppose, not being able to see puts her at a bit of a disadvantage here because of debris flying around the place. She's up in the air. She can sense where she is on the airship for the most part, but kind of beyond that is kind of a little bit kind of lost. So you have Sokka protecting Toph the entire time, and you get the big separation moment of Suki going down with one part of the ship. She manages to jump off that and land on one of the other airships, and is going down with that airship as the rest of the crew are going down on another one. So a really dramatic kind of ending to that side of things, of like they've taken out about half of that airship fleet, or done damage to at least most of it. So they're, successful, for the most part here, in that they've heavily limited the amount of damage that the Fire Nation can do. But, potentially have lost Suki in the process, and themselves aren't in the best situation either. Just the two of them on an airship, and who knows how many people about to come and take them, basically. And again, like Toph obviously proves herself to be exceptionally skilled with the metal bending against the Sozin's Comet enhanced firebenders. And even the grunts are able to do like really powerful blasts, like that scene where Sokka and Suki are on the outside, like either side of the door, and then Toph blocks a blast with her metal suit, and the kind of backfire basically from like the bit that goes past her just comes through the door, and it's like a nuclear bomb went off, the amount of fire that comes through the door. The animation on just like the amount of fire and making it seem really powerful is just so well done throughout this episode. So that's the airship for the most part. I suppose next to Order of the White Lotus, very cool. We don't get a ton in this episode, but it's just really cool to see, them preparing outside the walls, and Iroh being the one to, I suppose, kind of introduce us and kind of give us a little bit of a speech about the comet, that even he, while acknowledging that the rest of the Fire Nation is perhaps doing very bad things with the comet, is kind of like, just from a, idea of him understanding the true meaning of firebending, he is kind of embracing just a little moment to kind of feel firebending at its most powerful, while also being obviously one of the most in control characters with regards to firebending. And I suppose this sequence is basically the demonstration of the gulf and class between basically an average firebender enhanced by the comet versus a master using the comet. And just to see Iroh with the perfect breath control, able to just instantly flare up the circle of fire around them, and then to perfectly control all of it, direct it into this like compressed kind of ball of fire, and then just blast through Ba Sing Se's walls. I maintain it. That's probably the most powerful single firebending attack we've seen in the show. It's exceptionally powerful, and how easy it seemed to be for Iroh to pull it off speaks to just how powerful he is. And then once they get in, you see Pakku kind of doing some great work to get them in. Piandao, despite being the non-bender member of the group, is kind of sliding along ice, taking out people's weapons and stuff like that. Boomy doing some very powerful moves as Zhang Zhang really takes command in the middle of like the streets of Ba Sing Se. He's really, really impressive, and an example of like, this is his style of firebending. This is him, at his most powerful, kind of not so afraid of his own bending anymore, and just going crazy, blocking like the streets as like fire's coming down them with these huge walls. He's like hovering in the air with firebending, and just the kind of defense plus offense firebending that he does, of just sending a wall of fire down each street to basically take everything out. Really, really impressive kind of stuff from the Order of the White Lotus. Would love to see them in action a bit more, but again, when are we going to get an opportunity in the comics to really have that be a focus, and so on. But it's just awesome to see these characters really just show how skilled they are. What else do we have? I suppose we'll get into the Azula Zuko Agni Kai, with Katara kind of there initially to assist, but then as it ends up playing out, watch most of it. And this one's interesting in that obviously before that we have the build up to it, which is basically the one like character focused side of the episode that's not just all action, and that is Azula's, you really getting to understand her mental state at this point in time. The impact of what May entirely did in betraying her wasn't just that one moment. It has had an impact on her since that has happened, and everything is suddenly changing here. She is a kind of different person now, and is focusing on the wrong things. She's overemphasizing how perfect everything needs to be, is taking any little problem she encounters as like an act of betrayal, banishing everyone, and the biggest mistake she makes in the whole thing, banishing the Dai Li, who have always kind of, since she's got them, been her kind of get out of jail free card. That having that group of powerful earthbenders there when she needs them has always been something that's kind of saved her neck basically the last few times. And her banishing them for being like 5 minutes late speaks to how not in a clear mind she is. She's usually an exceptional tactician in how she took Ba Sing Se, but here she is not thinking at all about what potentially could happen here. Obviously, I suppose to a degree, she's not really expecting Zuko to arrive and challenge her like he does, but it just is like, wow, you just she emptied basically the Fire Nation capital of all of its most powerful people, meaning that it was basically her and a couple of fire sages to face off against whoever arrived, and it is Zuko and Katara who arrive, and it's so amazing to see just her breakdown. You get that kind of more kind of intimate moment of her kind of cutting her hair off and just seeing how kind of crazy she is really becoming here. She is kind of losing her mind. She's having hallucinations, and the big moment that highlights this is of course when she sees the hallucination of Ursa in the mirror. And it's so interesting to analyze this because of course she thinks her mother thinks of her as a monster, but at the same time it's her hallucination which is kind of presenting Ursa as we actually learn she actually is. That Ursa always cared about Azula. That we learned that in the search, that she did care as much for Azula as Zuko. she was just very concerned about the way Azula was turning out with, as kind of the hallucination says, you know, all you've done your entire life has been controlling people through fear. The extension of that is really that you haven't learned what it is to, I suppose, gain people's loyalty by like friendship and love and stuff like that. And like the reason like May sided with Zuko over you, you haven't learned what that is, what May felt and why she kind of betrayed you. And it's that kind of exact reason, and to this day it's still the kind of thing that like Azula hasn't properly understood, that her control through fear and manipulation is not the way to do things, and until she does that, she's not going to be able to really progress as a character beyond where she is right now. But yeah, just seeing that, and I think in her head, like knowing that her mother does love her, but kind of presenting this, I suppose, narrative to herself that no, my mother considers me a monster, that's why I don't care about her, that's why I hate her or whatever, she only cares about Zuko, not me. But deep down she knows Ursa did care about her. So very interesting to see a much more vulnerable side of Azula there, to see that like she is just like 14 here, and to just see her really have this breakdown, that we've always considered her this exceptionally powerful, in command, in control character who is now losing it kind of worse than anyone in the entire show has lost it. It is sad to see, but you also realize how dangerous that she actually is. But yeah, the fight, I like how Zuko immediately notices that Azula is not the same, and that he feels he can take her on his own, that he can best her because she is not in the right mental state. And I like how Katara kind of accepts this, that, you know, so no one else gets hurt, that she kind of acknowledges. I think it would have been in this situation a little bit silly of Katara to maybe over-argue this, given that it is Sozin's Comet and it's like two firebenders who are fighting here, that even if she fought alongside Zuko, she would have had to have been very careful around both of them, because just the backlash of any firebending attack that Zuko does is going to be so powerful she could get hurt. And as powerful of a waterbender as she is, she would have to go 100% to at all times to block even like a 10% like firebending attack at this stage. So I think I like that Katara acknowledged that like Zuko, like she trusts Zuko in what he says, that he can handle her, and that he's doing it kind of for her so that she won't get, you know, hurt in this situation. But I suppose Katara is there just in case backup is needed. And in a way also, given that it was for the throne, it makes sense to a degree that it is, you know, an Agni Kai, a kind of honourable battle to do this. But obviously it speaks to Zuko once again is the more honourable character. He came here with an ally, specifically told his ally to stay on the sidelines, and then it's Azula at the end of the fight who obviously does the dishonourable thing of knowing that she doesn't have the advantage here or is losing the fight, targets basically someone on the outside of the fight rather than her opponent in an effort to distract or, you know, just basically take someone out as she goes down. But the action here is great. Obviously everyone has talked kind of forever about how well executed this fight is, how long it's kind of been in the making, the fact that they take a lot of the sound out here. The music track that they use is not this really like crazy powerful track, but it just fits perfectly. It's kind of a kind of quiet music piece in a way. It just kind of has some sound to it, and it just fits the fight perfectly to get across that like just in the visuals you were kind of like engulfed in the visuals, not so much the sound effects. And you see how powerful this is. That we've seen Agni Kais before and the fire's been, you know, at times pretty big, but here is just like, no, when they miss an attack, they basically burn down a house. When someone blocks an attack, there's huge gulfs of fire out the side. That this is the most powerful like one-on-one fight that we've kind of seen up to this point. The amount of fire that's in play here is incredible, and you just see them completely going for each other. And throughout the fight, you notice Azula kind of shocked to see Zuko being able to kind of handle her. That she goes really, really aggressive, but Zuko kind of handles everything. That when he needs to be grounded, he maintains his ground and blocks the attacks. When he needs to be more agile, he kind of jumps in the air, does his kind of acrobatic block, and then when he sees his advantage when Azula charges for him, he takes the advantage and knows the key of the fight is break her route. And I love how it comes back to that's how he gets the advantage in the fight again. It's that she's coming at him with the kind of slightly off the ground kind of rocket booster type thing, and he just breaks her connection to the ground basically here with his kind of a breakdancing flare attack where he just sends fire in like so many directions. And while she doesn't take like a direct hit as such, she's sent flying because like it kind of, his fire like impacts where her fire was, and it just, takes her out. And I suppose the one mistake potentially that Zuko makes here is kind of taunting Azula to use lightning, instead of just potentially like going ahead to try and finish the fight in some way. And Azula, of course, brings out the lightning and targets Katara, and it's a great moment to just see, an example of like when you can't perfectly set up a lightning redirection, what can actually happen. That Zuko, for the most part, redirects like all of it. Like you see the after effects of like a huge jet of lightning going up into the air. That he redirects most of it, but that he does take some of it in himself. Because of the position he had to do it in, that he had to do this like diving lightning redirection thing, and he took some of it in the heart, so he's kind of like out of action for now. Obviously the implication is that like he's kind of dying here. He hasn't been like instantly killed like it looked like Aang was, but that he is basically helpless in this fight. And it wasn't that he was bested by Azula, it was just his kind of compassion for someone else, saving Katara, that kind of gave the advantage. And it obviously leaves Katara in this really tough position of having to, one, defend Zuko, while also protecting herself, from Azula. And it's this complete disadvantage that she's at, because Sozin's Comet enhanced Azula versus Katara at probably like one of the weaker moments for waterbending. Like, we don't know the full extent of like, oh, does Sozin's Comet enhancing firebending mean suddenly that waterbending's actually weaker? Or does that just not matter at all? But, you can see the disadvantage here of Katara's going to have to go 100% just to match anything Azula does. And so she has to play complete defensive from here on out. But that's where we leave that fight. And then we come to Aang versus Ozai. And really cool just to see Aang kind of in a way start off the fight. Ozai is of course burning the earth. And Aang just kind of announces his presence with like really cool, accurate but powerful earthbending hits to knock out the engine. Then he shows his firebending prowess using Sozin's Comet to just blow up basically the side of the airship to force Ozai to engage him in combat. And he offers him the opportunity of like, you can stop this now if you have to, we don't have to fight. But of course the fight begins. And I love how this is done. It's a very movement-based battle, and I think it's very fitting because obviously you have Aang, who's a very agile opponent, and if they didn't have Ozai be as mobile as Aang, it would have been, I think, a little bit dull of a fight. I think it would have been kind of dull in a similar way to the way, to a degree, the Zahir Korra fight is, in the sense of it just being kind of dodge, ram someone into a wall using superior mobility. Whereas here, I like that's what's emphasized in this, is that they're still using really powerful technical bending moves, but that Aang is really effectively using each of his four elements, and then Ozai is just demonstrating how much of a master he is of his element, using fire to maneuver really, really effectively, using kind of subtle fire when he needs to, big fire when he has to, and just maintains on the offensive for most of the fight. And I like that they didn't immediately just have Aang be on the defensive. He kind of, at times you can tell Aang is kind of, going 100% to stay in the fight because Ozai is so aggressive. But he's in the fight. He has an opportunity here that if Ozai doesn't fully dodge one attack, he's going to be in just as much danger as Aang is. So it is a fairly even fight, and just how they maneuver around the field of rocks, and how Aang really effectively uses earth bending to send huge pillars flying at Ozai, flies over to like a waterfall to use really powerful water bending, uses his air bending, of course, to maneuver effectively, and then his fire bending primarily to block Ozai's attacks, which I do appreciate. But it's a demonstration of that, like, Aang at this point is, you know, a recent, but he is, you know, a master of four elements, even though he's kind of just in a way achieved that. So it's just a really fun fight to just see the amount of movement and how they are in basically the same location. They just maneuver around it so much. And of course, similar to Azula, he breaks out the lightning right towards the end of the fight. And you see how powerful his is because he uses two hands and generates it really effortlessly. Sorry about my pronunciation of that. It's probably like the one kind of thing with Ozai you can really go to as like, there's something that Ozai has that is like, in a way, unique to him, that like is a power that he has that kind of he's really, really good at. Like, Ozai probably, you'd have to say, is one of the best, or if not the best, at generating lightning based on what we've seen. He seems to be able to generate it really quickly, kind of do it with both hands when he needs to, and just have it be really powerful and effective. Obviously, it's kind of let down by the fact that he doesn't have redirection himself, but even Azula has kind of been shown that she takes just a little bit longer than Ozai to charge up, and tends to also just use one hand for the most part. But Azula in the comics now has redirection, so that kind of is an interesting dynamic. But yeah, I love this sequence. They kind of zoom out a bit to kind of you can almost predict how it's happening. Aang's dodging the lightning. Because it takes a bit of charge up time, it creates this kind of situation of like a timing of like, what's going to happen first? Is Aang going to land somewhere and be hit at the perfect time, or is Aang going to land and have time to redirect? And what happens is that Aang gets the opportunity to redirect lightning at Ozai. And this is the big moment. I love how they set this up. Zuko thought Aang the redirection technique, you know, in the first part of the finale, I think it was. And here he is using it. And this is his kill opportunity against Ozai. That you see Ozai's face, and he knows redirection because Zuko used it against him. And he knows that he's kind of stopped in position. He can't dodge it. If Aang fires it at him, he can't dodge, that it is over. And I liked seeing that kind of look of like shock, desperation on Ozai's face, but also that this is Aang's big choice, and his choice is to redirect it away. But it also is what turns the fight in Ozai's favor more effectively, because I like that Sozin's Comet Lightning, it has an effect on you even if you redirect it properly. And Aang is just, at this point, just fully defensive in the fight, running away from Ozai, and by the end of the episode, kind of curled up in an earth ball, kind of defenseless at this point, as he's kind of running low on energy. And it's just, we end this part of the finale with some successes, but also some, like, not great situations of, like, the Katara, Azula, Zuko stuff not in a great position. Aang, Ozai not in a great position. So even the airship crew not in a great position. The only ones that are really succeeding at this point are the Order of the White Lotus. So it's a very interesting dynamic to end the first part of the finale on. Of course, there's still the last part to come, but it's good to just to have it be this way, of just 3 of the 4 groups encountering huge trouble. How are they going to turn it around in each side? So, just excellent fights and setup for the fights. Getting to see really big, powerful bending for one of the first kind of times in the series. It's just really cool because, for the most part, like, you really can count on your hands the number of times we like properly get a like set up one-on-one fight between 2 characters that is going to end in some sort of conclusion. Most of the time it's kind of just like, here's a quick scuffle as like someone's trying to escape, or here's a group fight and we switch opponents multiple times, but everyone has to escape and get away. So just seeing that, like, here are some fights where there just has to be a winner and a victor, a winner and a loser. So that's another positive thing with this episode. And yeah, just huge powerful bending, and not just fire. I like that with Aang you get to see him do some huge like earth bending, very powerful air bending. Like, he does this crazy spiral thing to get to the top of one of the earth pillars that kind of gets him in a position to kind of set up the lightning sequence, and you know, just a huge gust of like air that he's firing at Ozai, but also setting up the idea that there is going to, in this fight, be a power-up for all of the other elements that kind of puts them on par with kind of Comet-enhanced firebending. But that's next episode. But yeah, that's been the review for Sozin's Comet Part 3, Into the Inferno. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts are on this episode, as well as what I had to say about it. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye. I'm basically going to watch and then record the final review immediately after this. So, you know, expect basically these two parts to be up on the same day. But yeah, bye.